It'd be a little different without any brothers in here for them not reading, but inshallah, the same thing. You just have to hear my voice more. We begin in the second section of An-Nahw al-Wadih, and this section is a little bit more difficult, as the first section was basically an introduction to some very basic matters. This section is going to get into more of the i'rab of verbs and nouns, and it's going to become increasingly more complicated. However, the first few chapters are basic rules that there's not a lot to do with. It's more of how a word looks than what to do with the word, but just basically some introductory stuff of how a word looks. For example, this first chapter, تقسيم الفعل إلى صحيح الآخر ومعتل الآخر, the division of the verb into the sahih al-akhir, which is the verb which the ending of it is sahih, meaning it is sound, it is healthy, it is salim, and as we'll see what that means in a second. And then the verb which is weak in its ending. We'll see what we mean by weak and what we mean by sound, inshallah. So the first sentence here, ألقى الصياد شبكته. ألقى is from laqiya, form 4, meaning to throw or to cast. A sayyad is a hunter, from the word sayd, which means to hunt. Those who have studied anything about the ahkam of Umrah and Hajj and the fada'il of Mecca, then they know it's impermissible a sayd fil haram. It's not permissible to do hunting inside of the precinct, which is prohibited to hunt and cut down trees. So alqa sayyadu shabakatahu. We had this word shabaka in the beginning of Qawaid al-Arba, his net. So alqa sayyadu shabakatahu, the hunter cast out his net or threw out his net. We see alqa ends here in a alif, or we say alif maksura, same thing, alif maksura. Second one, da'a al-maridu at-tabiba. Da'a al-maridu at-tabiba. Da'a, he called, al-marid, the sick person, called the doctor, at-tabiba. And if we just go back, we'll see that sayyad has a Dhamma, it's marfu', it's the fa'il. Marid has a Dhamma, it's marfu', it's the fa'il. He's the one doing the calling, he's the one doing the casting out. And then Shabaka and Tabib both have fathas, they're maf'ulun bihi mansub. They're the object of the verb. And du'a or da'a ends in an alif as well. Yalqa al-musi'u jaza'ahu. Yalqa is from laqiya as well, but is form 1. Laqiya yalqa, this yalqa is form 1 of the same root, meaning to meet or to encounter. To meet or to encounter. I don't know why my pen's not writing good. To meet or to encounter. So the musi, the one who did badly, the one who did a sin, sayya, right? Min sayyati amalina. Al-musi, like the one who prayed badly, that Shaykh al-Albani writes about in his Sifat al-Salat al-Nabi. Musi salatahu, the one who prayed badly, the one who did bad in his salat. Al-musi, the one who did bad. Yalqa, meets or meets jaza'ahu, meets his reward. Jaza being mansub maf'ulun bihi, musi marfu'. The point though is not the marfu' of the fa'il or the mansub of the maf'ulun bihi. Rather, the point is that that verb ends in an alif. These three, they all end in alif. Right. We move to the next section down here below, and we will see similar. Sarwa rajulu. Sarwa rajulu. This verb ends in a dhamma. I mean in a wow. I said a dhamma. Asif. It ends in a wow, and it means to rid yourself of worries, or basically to regain one's composure. So saru wal rajulu, meaning the man regained his composure. He freed himself from worries, or anxieties. So basically, he feels at peace again. So sarwa rajulu. Then it ends in a wow, and rajulu is a dhamma, but it's the fa'il. He's the one regaining peace. Tasfu as-sama. Tasfu as-sama. This comes from, if we might know Safwatu Tafsir. Safwatu Tafsir, or we might, I'm not sure. Anyway, tasfu comes from saf, sad, fa, wow, meaning to become clear, right? Safwatu Tafsir would be like the clear tafsir. So tasfu as-sama, the sky is becoming clear. This is a present tense, fi'l mubarak. Sama fa'il marfu', tasfu, again it ends in a wow. Yadnu fadlu shita. Yadnu means to come close. If any guys have a question from what I'm saying, just type it, otherwise no problem. Yadnu faslu shita. Yadnu, to come close. It's the same word the Prophet ﷺ uses, that when one of you prays, he should yadnu ila sutra, as-sutra. He should come close to the sutra. Faslu shita. Faslu shita. Fasl here doesn't mean classroom, as some people might think, or it doesn't mean level, right, or grade, as some people might think. Rather, faslu shita means the season. Fasl is season, like mosim. Another word for season is mosim. Yadnu faslu shita. The winter season is coming close. All of these end in a wow, right? Fadlu or faslu is the fa'il, and shita is maf'ul bihi, right? If we go up to the top, number 7, we'll see khashiya Muhammadun Rabbahu. Khashiya, to fear, Muhammad, the fa'il, Rabba, maf'ulun bihi, Muhammad fears his Lord. These are all yas, even though they don't write the dots. In many places, they still don't write the dots on a ya, but you pronounce it as a ya, so you know it's a ya. Alright? It's a ya. The Indians and the Pakistanis, even from the people of Ahl Hadith, they don't ever write dots on the ya. Almost never. Khashiya Muhammadun Rabbahu. Abgha, this one could not be. Abgha Rida al-Walidain. Abgha means to desire, or to seek, or to As Allah says, whoever seeks a religion other than that of Islam, it will never be accepted from him. Using this abgha. Abgha rida al-walidain, seek the pleasure of the parents. What are you seeking? The rida maf'ulun bihi mansub. The point though is that it ends in a ya, or it could be here in alif. We say yabni al-banna masjidan. Yabni al-banna'u masjidan. Yabni from to build. Buni al-Islam ala khams. Islam is built on 5. Yabni al-banna. Al-banna is the worker, the construction worker, the one who builds, the builder. Yabni al-banna'u masjidan. Maf'ulun bihi mansub. The point though is it ends in a ya. So these first 3, our first 9, this group all end in an alif. This second group all end in a waw, and this group basically ends in a ya, even though abgha is in alif. Now if we go down below, we're going to find that these end in the normal letters. Adlama al-makan. Adlama meaning to become shaded or darkened. Adlama al-makan, the place became shaded or dark. Ends with a B, right? And the makan fa'il marfu'. Ittaqada al-misbah. Ittaqada from waqada, meaning to be on fire, to ignite, to light the fire. Ittaqada means to burn. Al-misbah, the misbah is burning, it is lit, right? This is form 8 of waqada. Al-misbah is the lantern, right? As we know in Surah An-Nur, the ayat of Nur, al-misbah. So ittaqada al-misbah, misbah is marfu' fa'il. Ittaqada ends with a dal. Yastahimmu al-ghilman. Al-ghilman is the plural of gulam, right? Boys, young men, they are showering, marfu' fa'il. Yastahimmu ends with a meme. They're showering. Yastahimmu means to take a shower, from the word hammam. Hammam doesn't mean bathroom with a toilet. It means a place with a bathtub or a shower, right? That's what it means. And when they used to prohibit the men or the women from going to the hammam, it didn't mean from going to the bathroom. It meant from the bath places where they would just have a big pool with steaming water, and they'd have people there taking care of the water, where people would take a communal bath and they would get naked in that communal bath. That's what's prohibited. That's what's prohibited. Hammam means the bath. So if you, for instance, a swimming pool is called hammam as-sabaha. That's a swimming pool. Hammam as-sabaha. Sabaha is swimming. So swimming pool. So hammam is really a pool. So yastahimmu means they're taking a shower. Yastahimmu, they're taking a shower, or they're taking a bath like this. Just is used for a shower, but it could be for a bath as well. Yastahimmu al-ghilman. This all ends. So we see the rule here. If we go down, that's just explaining those. And then the rule is very simple. This qaida is really 2, but could just easily be 1. الفعل معتل الآخر هو ما كان آخره ألف أو واو أو ياء، وتسمى هذه الأحرف الثلاثة بحروف العلة. The verb which has a basically weak ending, then it's the verb that ends in an alif, a waw, or a ya. And they are called, these 3 letters, they are called ahruful illa. Illa means a sickness or a defect. A sickness or a defect, right? So these ahruf are called, here we'll say weak, because that's what happens when you're sick or you have a defect and you're weak, right? So they're weak letters. So if you have a verb that ends in an alif, a waw, or a ya, then that is a weak verb. وفعل صحيح الآخر هو ما لم يكن آخره حرفا من أحرف العلة ثلاثة. Then the Sahih al-Akhir is a verb that does not end in one of those three weak letters. So if it ends in any other letter besides these three, the verb is called Sahih al-Akhir. If it ends in these three, it's called al-Mu'tal al-Akhir. Now, that's it for that chapter. That's it. Just to know, and it's a very simple section, that if the verb ends in an alif, a waw, or ya, it's weak. It's called mu'tal. We just have to learn that. Mu'tal al-akhir. We learn that. If it ends in any other letters, these three, sahih al-akhir. What does that mean? It's going to be coming up in the future chapters. What that means is the signs of marfu' and mansub and majroor and jazm, majzoom, they are going to, yes, this is the rule for these letters. They're weak if they're in the end. If they're in the middle, then they're called something else. If an alif is in the beginning of a verb, such as in akala, it's called another kind. If it's in the middle, such as in qala, it's another kind, right? But if it's at the end, why are we worried about the end? Because we're studying grammar. We're studying grammar, and grammar has to do with the ends of words. It doesn't have to do with the beginnings. Ya'kulu versus ta'kulu, that's sarf. Ya'kulu versus ta'kulu, that's sarf, right? He eats, or he eats, she eats, you eat, we eat. All that has to do with sarf. The beginning of verbs, that's sarf. What we're worried about is the end of the words. That's An-Nahw, right? So the point is that when you have verbs that end in an alif, a waw, or a ya, when they are mu'tal al-akhir, then their sign of i'rab, their sign of being marfu', their sign of being mansub, their sign of being majroor, their sign of being majzoom is going to be different than the rest of the verbs that end in a harf, which is sahih al-akhir, right? A verb or a harf, a letter which is sound at the end of it. Then these rules that we're going to learn, al-i'rab for marfu and majzoom and all that, then they're going to have a rule. But these verbs that end in an alif, a waw, or a ya, then they're going to be exceptions to those. As we see, we know, oops, I went too far up. We know, for example, that present tense verbs, we said, one of our rules from book 1, if there's nothing in front of it, it's going to end with a dhamma. If there's nothing in front of a present tense verb, it's going to make it mansub or majzoom, then it's going to end in a dhamma. It's going to be marfu'. But here, yalqa is a present tense verb. Sign of ya is right there. But it doesn't end in a dhamma. Yalqa, it doesn't say that. It says yalqa. Why? Because of this weak letter. Right? So yabni, this doesn't have dhamma, even though it's present tense. Right? Because of the weak letter. Abgha, it doesn't have a sukoon written on it because of that present tense letter. Khashiya, that's fine, because these are all past tense. Those are. As for down here, tasfu, we don't say tasfuwu, right? Even though it's a present tense, there's nothing in front of it. It should be marfu' ending with the dhamma, but here it doesn't have anything on it. Why? Because of the weak letter. Same thing with yadnu. We don't have yadnu. Yadnu, we know. Better, it does not have it. So these are exceptions. Whereas here, adlama, past tense, ittaqada, past tense, yastahimmu. Here we see our dhamma being clear and apparent because we have a sahih al-akhir verb. That's the whole point of this chapter, just letting you know that we're going to explain some rules, how verbs are built, what they're built upon, and how they change. But these letters are these verbs that end with an alif, a waw, or a ya. They're going to be exceptions. That's the whole purpose of this first chapter. It's basically pretty simple. Okay. What happened? The next section is al-mabni wal-mu'rab. Al-mabni, it means, and it's going to go below. We'll just go there first then. We'll just go to the qaida first. And then we'll explain the examples, inshallah. The qawaid here, he says, Al-kalimatu tanqasimu qismain. Words are divided into two types. We had one division in the beginning of Ajrumiyya, and we also explained it in the beginning of this book. Kalima can be three types: ism, fi'l, and harf. Here we have another division: mabni and mu'rab. Right? Al-kalimatu tanqasimu qismain. Words are divided into two divisions. ما يثبت آخره على حال واحدة في جميع تراكيب ويسمى مبنيا، وما يتغير آخره ويسمى معربا. So those words which do not change ever, such as in ad-dunya, right? Dunya is always going to be dunya. It's never going to be dunyu, dunyi. It's always ad-dunya. This is called mabni. And those words which do change, they're called mu'rab. I'rab is the changing of the last vowelization on the word due to something that entered into that word or in the beginning of it. Due to something coming, such as min, or like harf or preposition, or such as inna wa akhawatuha, or kana wa akhawatuha, or other than that, right? So those words that do change, they're called mu'rab. Mu'rab. Right? And those words that don't change, they're called mabni. It's an easy rule. Wa huruf kulluha mabni. So now, mabniya. So now they're going to give us categories. Al-huruf, meaning min, wa illa, wa an, wa ala, wa fi, wa rubba, wa kaf, wa ba, wa lam, or ba, wa kaf, wa lam. All of those are going to be mabni. You're never going to see min other than with the sukoon. Now you might have a fatha, you might have a fatha here for reading purposes, only, but grammar-wise, it's only always going to have sukoon. Fi is always going to be fi, not going to be fay or few. You can't even say it, right? Ila is always going to be ila. It's not going to be ili or ilu. It's not going to happen. Huruf, they're always mabni. Always mabni huruf. That's number one. And this is a nice chapter because it shows how easy grammar really is. وكذلك جميع الأفعال الماضية, as well as the past tense verbs. They never change. Their state never changes. It's always going to be min. Madiya, the past tense verbs always stay the same. Akala is always going to be akala. It's never going to be akalu, akali. Whereas yakulu could become yakula and yakula. It could become yakula and it could become yakul. It could become majzoom if something comes before it to make it majzoom. But that's a present tense verb. As for the past tense, then they're mabni. وَجَمِيعَ الْأَفْعَالِ الْأَمْرِ. And for instance, kul, eat. It's never going to be kullu, kulla, kulli, never. It's not going to happen. It's always going to have a sukoon. Ijlis is always going to have a sukoon. Right? Ud'u, it's always going to be like that. It's never going to change. So now we have three things which are mabni. Past tense verbs, command verbs, and huruf. So that leaves us with what? Okay, we said the fi'l is three kinds. We'll say past, present, and command. Okay, huruf, mabni. Command, mabni. Past, mabni. So we have two things that we're working with. Grammar only deals with two things. The present tense verb and nouns. That's it. Present tense verbs and nouns. Everything else is mabni. So now grammar got real easy because all of a sudden the things that we're dealing with got reduced. We had 5 things. The ism, the 3 types of fi'ls, and the harf. 5 of them. All of a sudden 3 of them were taken away from us and they became mabni, and we don't ever have to deal with them anymore. All we got to do is learn what that word is, and that's what that word will always be. It's mabni, khalas. Now we have to deal with the fi'l and the ism, the fi'l mudari and the ism. Grammar just became real easy because we lost 60% of the words, or 60% of the types of words at least, that we're going to be dealing with. So now let's go back up. Al-Mabni wal-Mu'rab. Mabni is what? Doesn't change. Al-Mu'rab, the end changes. So he says, Aina manziluk. Aina is never going to change. It's never going to be Ainu, Aina, Aini, Ain with a sukoon. No, we might say Ain because we stopped at the end, right? But Aina is always going to be Aina. Aina manziluka, where is your house? Manzil is house. Aina tadhab, where are you going? Aina tadhab, always going to be is mabni. Ila ain tasiru, where are you going? Tasiru is going, moving, going along. Sir, traveling, not really traveling, but like that. Could be traveling, could be just walking and cruising, right? Ila is always going to be ila. Ain is always going to be ain. These are huruf, right? These are harf al-istifham here. Harf al-istifham, question harf. And this is harf a jar, a preposition. They're always going to be that way. كيف حالك يا ياسين؟
الحمد لله كيف حالك؟
الحمد لله نحمد الله. Then he says ذبح الجزار شاة. The butcher, الجزار مرفوع فاعل. ذبح, slaughtered, not ذبح for zabiha, but ذبح for dhabiha. Zabiha is Pakistani Indian pronunciation, right? ذبح al-Jazzaru shat. The Jazzar, the butcher, slaughtered a sheep. Sheep, shat. You can say shah, but it just doesn't sound right. So even the Arabs, they usually say shat, just to emphasize that, right? So it doesn't sound like shah, like mashallah, or like that, right? That ha at the end, if you make that ta marbuta, a ha, it's hard to say it silent at the end. Shah, they don't do that, right? So dhabaha al-Jazzaru shat, maf'ulun bihi mansub. Dhabaha, past tense, it's always going to be dhabaha. It's never going to be dhabahu or dhabahi or dhabah. It's going to be dhabaha because it's a past tense verb, fi'l madi. Al-Jazzaru dhabaha shat. Even if you put it in the middle, right? It's still going to be dhabaha. It's always going to be mabni al-fath. Mabni al-fath. Ain is mabni al-fath. Ila is mabni al-sukun. Ila, that alif maksura has nothing on it. Right? So you say mabni al-sukun, even though you don't write the sukun. Right? Hal dhabaha al-Jazzaru shat. Right? Has the Jazzar, has the butcher slaughtered a sheep? Right? No matter what, even if you put it in a question, even if you do this, it's going to be mabni al-fath. And hal is a harf al-istifham, a question word as well. It's mabni al-sukun. It's never going to be hallu, halla, halli. Ever. It's only going to ever be hal. Min ayyi makani jit. Should be a makanin. A makanin jit. Min ayyi makanin jit. Ayyi, this is a noun. Ayyi is a noun. Could be ayu, ayyi, ayya, depending on what's in front of it. But min is mabni ala sukun. Even if we had something in front of it like min al masjid, so we say min al masjid. We put this fatha there in order for reading purposes. Min here is still mabni ala sukun. This alif is for reading purposes and for none other. Because the real Arabs, they're not even going to write the vowels. They'll just say min al masjid without the vowels. Right? So you're going to know min is mabni ala sukun even though you pronounced a fatha. But it's never going to be a grammar rule. Jittu min manzili. I came from my house. Jittu is a past tense verb, right? It's mabni here ala sukun because this is the fa'il. Tu is the fa'il. This is mabni ala sukun. It's always going to be jittu, not ji'atu, ji'atu, ju'tu, whatever. Right? Same thing here. Jitta. Same thing. Mabni ala sukun. This is the fa'il. Right? Min is mabni ala sukun. Never going to change. Akhadhtu min abi nukudan. Akhadhtu mabni ala sukun because the tu is the fa'il. We're going to learn all this inshallah. But it's mabni. It's a past tense verb. Akhadha. Akhadha is past tense. Right? Akhadhtu mabni ala sukun here. This is the fa'il. Min abi nukudan. I took from my father some money. Min, no matter what it is, mabni ala sukun. The doer never changes meaning. The doer here is a damir. The doer here is a pronoun. So the the fa'il is always going to be marfu'. Fa'il is always marfu'. The fa'il is always marfu'. Yes. To here, this is marfu', right? Because it's the fa'il. To ta is the fa'il, so it's marfu'. So it's marfu'. But this is different. This rules of pronouns is another rule we'll get to in the future. But we're talking about here the verb itself. The verb itself is mabni. That's what we're talking about. The past tense verb is mabni. Al-qutnu, which is cotton. Imadu tharwati fi Misr. I don't know imad al-tharwa. 1 second. Imad al-tharwa. Let's see what that is. Sorry about this. I don't know imad al-tharwa. I'm not familiar with Misr. It's a type. I guess it's a type of wealth. Imad al-tharwa. It's like a what's the word? Like a material, a commodity of wealth. Cotton. I guess that's what they trade in, right? Al-qutn is a commodity of wealth. Fi Misr. Fi is mabni, right? Fi is mabni, right? Jana falahul qutna. Jana is he is picking or rolling or doing whatever he does with the cotton. Jana mabni. Tasna'u al-malabisu min al-qutn. Here we have a fata on min, but it's for reading purposes. It's mabni ala sukun. This is a present tense verb. It changes. Tasna'u, tasna'a, tasna' with a sukun. Anyway, like we said, we could go through the rest of the example, but the point is that we had al-kalima 3 types. Ism, fi'l, harf. The fi'l is 3 types. Madi, mudari' and amr. Okay, so now we have 5 types of words basically. Huruf are mabni. Fil amr mabni. Fil madi mabni. They never change. Whatever that verb is, it's always going to be like that. As for the mudari' and the ism, then they change. They're called mu'rab. These are mu'rab. They change. So today, the first part was that there are 2 types of verbs, different types. We have different categorizations due to different functions. The fi'l can be 2 types. Sahih al-akhir, meaning it ends in, well, we'll get to the mu'tal al-akhir first then make it ayn, mu'tal al-akhir. Mu'tal al-akhir is a verb which ends in alif, a waw, or a ya. Right? Every other letter, sahih al-akhir. It's sound in the end. What does that mean? That means when we start talking about i'rab of verbs and how a verb has a fatha or a kasra, I mean not a kasra because verbs never have jar. So if it has a fatha or a dhamma or it has a sukun, these letters, this type of verb, mu'tal al-akhir, is going to have a little bit of a different look or rule. It's going to have the same rule, but the appearance is going to be different due to the last word, the last letter being weak. Whereas the rule is going to be apparent on all the rest of the verbs that have a sound ending, meaning it ends in any of the letters other than the alif, a waw, and a ya. That was the first chapter that we did. Sahih al-akhir, mu'tal al-akhir. If a verb ends in alif, waw, or ya, it's mu'tal al-akhir. It's sick in its ending. It's weak in its ending. And the rules that we're about to discuss in the future weeks, they're going to apply to these verbs. However, it may look a little bit different. It may appear a little bit different due to the weak ending. But the Sahih al-Akhir, which is the majority, then they are going to have these rules that we're going to see appear on them in an apparent manner. Then we had al-Kalima, right? Divided into Mabni and Mu'rab. And we took off, and what we do when we study grammar, when we study i'rab of the Quran, or i'rab of the Arabic language, i'rab, that's a big part of, or the main part of Nahw. Then what that is to study the ends of the words and how they change. I'rab is how the ends of words change due to what came before it. How the end of a word changes due to what came before it. And we see that only two types of words are in that. Nouns and present tense verbs, fi'l mudari. As for the fi'l madi, the fi'l amr, and the huruf, then all of them are mabni, and we'll take them out of it because they have nothing to do with it. They're mabni. I think it makes grammar pretty easy when we do it like this. Ajrumiyya does the same exact thing, it just does it in a different order. But all this stuff is the exact same stuff as is in Ajrumiyya. This breaks it down, to me, this book breaks it down a little bit better, because Ajrumiyya kind of lumps stuff together and then explains it, whereas this book kind of breaks it all up and then lumps it together in a whole. So it's just a different approach, and it's to me a better approach for the non-Arab, and Allah knows best. Are there any questions about this? Okay, this is An-Nahw al-Bina. This is really easy. Yasin is with us, inshallah. An-Nahw al-Bina. Abdullah has the flu. I don't know where anyone else might be. They're scared of grammar, I think. An-Nahw al-Bina. Okay, Bina meaning from Mabni, right? Let's read the qaida. Okay, الأحوال التي تلازم أواخر الكلمات المبنية أربعة. The conditions of which are at the end, which are must be at the end of the verb which is mabni, or the words which are mabni, are four. This is easy. It's only going to either be a sukoon, a fatha, a dhamma, or a kasra. Right? These are called An-Nahw al-Bina. An-Nahw al-Bina. It's either going to be mabni ala sukoon, or mabni ala al-fath, or mabni ala dhamm, or mabni ala kasr. والكلمات التي يلازم أواخرها السكون والفتح أو الضم أو كسر يقال إنها مبنية على السكون أو على الفتح أو على الضم أو على الكسر. This is too easy. That a word that is mabni, if we go back to our chart, right? We could say a word which is mabni ala sukoon على الفتح or على الضم or على الكسر. Right? And we know these fatha, dhamma, kasra. It's the same thing, but just the context is being used in, but it means the same thing. So a word is going to be mabni ala sukun, mabni ala fath, mabni ala dam, or mabni ala kasr. That's it. Right? That's it. And these are called anwa al-bina. Simple. Right? Simple. We know when it's mabni, it's going to be mabni ala dhamma, ala sukun, ala fatha, or ala kasra. That's how it is. It's mabni on that, and it's never going to change. Then you would have the next chapter. This is all easy. Like we said, we don't have to do these examples. You could do the examples on your own if you have the PDF or if you have the book, but the point is we're going to do this stuff inside of our readings. We're going to see these. We're going to use Thalathatul Usul coming up to be our examples. Anwa al-i'rab. Okay, it's the same rule basically. It's the exact same rule. But dealing with i'rab, that's anwa al-i'rab is sukun or fatha, dhamma, kasra. الأحوال التي تعتري أواخر الكلمات المعربة أربع وهي الرفع والنصب والجزم أو الجر والجزم وتسمى أنواع الإعراب. Okay, now we go here. Get my green pen back, and we say mu'rab, right, is al-jazm, which is the same as sukun. Majzum, maskun, meaning has a sukun on it. Mansub, An-Nasb, we'll say, from mansub. An-Nasb, al-Raf, wa al-Jar. Right? Raf, wal-Nasb, wal-Jar, wal-Jazm. These are anwa al-i'rab. Simple. We covered 4 chapters in an hour because we know this stuff really. You don't have to do more than that. There's things which are going to be mabni ala sukun, mabni ala al-fath, mabni ala dhamma, mabni ala kasra. These are anwa al-bina. And then there's something, a verb or a noun, which is going to be, a noun will never be majzum, but we can get into that later. It's going to come up in the next chapter. Right? You're going to have a word which is majzum, a word which is mansub, a word which is marfu', and a word which is majroor. These are anwa al-i'rab. So when it's mabni, then we call the anwa the sign itself. And when it's mu'rab, then we call the sign by the case. This is by the sign, I guess, like the fatha, the kasra, the dhamma, the sukun, and this is by the case. That's it. Are there any questions? It's bad that there does this because it's so much benefit and how easy it makes the grammar, right, by breaking it down like this. But inshallah, they can go back and watch the video. If not, then, you know, they'll just be behind, which will keep us all behind. Mabni is assigned by what? No, mabni, a word can be mabni ala sukun, such as min, or men, right, or fi. Right? Then you can have a word which is mabni ala dhamma, such as, I can't think of one which is mabni ala dhamma right now. Let's go up in our book and see if we can find one. Okay. كم مبني على سكون. بكم مبني على سكون. اعتدل مبني على الفتح, past tense verb. أكل جلس, all of those مبني على سكون. Or أكل جلس مبني على الفتح. Right? Let's see. Okay. If this is on a sukoon, right? Sir, that's on a sukoon, right? حيث مبني على الضمة. حيث مبني على الضمة. It's always going to be حيث. It's not going to be حيث or حيثي. It's always going to be حيث. Right? So, مبني, when we say مبني على سكون or fatha or kasra. When we talk about i'rab, then we're going to talk about this word is majzoom, this word is mansoob, this word is marfu', this word is majroor. The sign is going to be a kasra, a dhamma, a fatha, or a sukoon, but that's not what we're going to call it. We're not going to say it's marfu', or we're not going to say it's sukoon here. No, we're going to say it's marfu' or majzoom or mansoob, but it's the same thing. Sukoon and jazm is the same thing. Nasb and fat, basically the same thing. Except when you get into more complicated words, then there could be a sign of raf, which is a fatha. Right? Like in dunya, it's mabni, like this, right? You could have a sign of jar, which is a fatha, such as in Fatima. It's mamnu' min as-sarf. It doesn't take. Fatima is a feminine name, so it does not take a kasra or a tanween. So when it comes, this is min Fatima, then min Fatimata. But this is marfu' with a fatha, right? And that might start to make things a little complicated. But the point right now is, as we said, number one, verbs are divided into sahih al-akhir and mu'tal al-akhir. Those that mu'tal al-akhir end with an alif, a waw, or ya, sahih al-akhir, every other letter. Then, when we're dealing with i'rab, we're dealing with nouns, ism, asma, and fi'l mudari. Everything else is mabni. Mabni ala sukoon, mabni ala fath, mabni ala damr, mabni ala kasra. And when we talk about i'rab, then it's either going to be, the word is going to be majzoom, mansoob, marfu', or majroor. Is it clear? I only got 30 seconds left. Alhamdulillah, we covered 4 chapters with no problem. And I hope we don't have to review it before the people come. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.